Xinyan Kuai La FGC. Yes, we're back with another extra trashy, and a happy Chinese New Year to all those who partake. But we got a lot to talk about today. I'm back again with Adam. Adam, how you doing, man?
What's up? What's up? You know, caught me by surprise. I didn't know anything that you said in the beginning, but you know, I respect that. You know, I guess I gotta step my culture up because I had no idea what you said.
Hey, man, it's Chinese New Year, dude. Come on, you're not celebrating. You got no dumplings going on tonight. You're not gonna ganbei at all.
It's President's Day.
I think you're confused. Listen,
Yeah,
we're the Chinese century, man. You gotta. It's still like our President's Day. It's Chinese century. You gotta go with the times here, dude.
I'm just old, man. I'm fading into dust.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the Chinese century is coming. But what's also coming up is a couple of interesting topics of discussion. So we have two big things we want to get into today on Extra Trashy. Of course, we have the update for Capcom Cup and their decision to go pay-per-view for the World Finals for Capcom Cup and Street Fighter League coming up in March. But also, we got the age-old discussion about fighting games. Are they doomed? Can they be saved? Because we have a big essay from Wheatbix that kicked off a massive discussion across Twitter and all the social media channels. And you're going to see every single content creator delving into this essay and trying to get their take in. Fighting games have a product design problem. Really good essay. We're going to give our takes on it as well and contribute to the conversation. But first, let's get started with the Capcom Cup pay-per-view update. To give the brief overview for those who don't know, Capcom Cup went pay-per-view, and they announced that it would be $40 originally for the pay-per-view in late September, early October in 2025. And of course, everyone was pissed. It would be free for the group stages, but for the finals, for the bundle for the Saturday, which is Capcom Cup Top 16, and for the Street Fighter League World Finals on Sunday, it would have been essentially $40 USD. And this was the typical model that they had for Street Fighter League in Japan, and that Capcom figured, oh, it's going to go swimmingly. Everyone will love the pay-per-view, and put the FGC ablaze, and people were pissed, especially the different audiences from different regions having different reactions. After all that complaining and that blowback, they announced just this week that Capcom Cup pay-per-view will go from $40 USD for the bundle to $10 USD, on top of allowing co-streaming so graciously for the three group stages of the 3 days for group stages. And also, they're doing the Battle Hub stream. We talked about this on the show so many times about how the Battle Hub should be actually using that giant screen in the middle of the Battle Hub. They did the test broadcast just recently to actually play Street Fighter League Japan in there, and they're confirming that they're going to be doing an attempt to stream the Capcom Cup Finals for free in Battle Hub. We'll get into the details about what that could mean or could not mean. And that's basically the main update. So a lot of different reactions from this. I have my own takes. I'm sure Adam has his own takes. But I'm wondering, Adam, what was your first reaction when you saw that they're finally dropping the price? Hey, thanks for checking out the brand new Trash Talk content, and maybe you're enjoying the new and refreshed look on the brand new Trash Talk YouTube channel. Well, whether or not you're tuning in on YouTube or Spotify or another podcast platform, I want to thank today's sponsor, you. To commemorate kicking off the new season of Trash Talk, we've also launched a new merch line. This new merch line's on a brand new merch store over at Orchid 8. You can check out t-shirt and hoodie designs for the new Trash Talk logos and extra trashy logos. We also have brand new unique designs like Hajoken, custom move lists, one more coffee sip for real, and of course, Brian F's signature spaghetti. On top of that, of course, we've got all the designs on mugs as well. To check out what's available, just head over to brianf.shop to see all the brand new merch. Okay, that's all I got. Back to the episode.
Well, my first reaction, and I will keep saying this to the end of time. Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, all the complaining works. Just keep complaining. Complaining will work. It'll get you what you want in life. Just keep on complaining. But you know, it's kind of it's kind of what I don't want to say I was expecting. I wasn't expecting it to stay $40. Obviously, a lot of people are, you know, more prone to spend $10 than $40. Obviously, it's a huge jump for a lot of people. So will I be spending the $10? Maybe still maybe not. Still maybe out of my price range. But at the same time, I do think it's better for a lot of people, and I feel like more people would be more accepting to spend $10 instead of $40.
I gotta disagree here, Idom. It's not the price, it's the principle, man. Of course, I would spend $10 to support the Capcom Pro Tour. Of course, I think it's worth $10 on its own in a vacuum, the entertainment value. But it's not about it's the principles, man. And also, I just want to talk about the announcement itself. The announcement was very interesting, right? This is the first time we have a face to the esports division. A big part of like why this was such a big dramatic event for Capcom and Street Fighter 6, the dev team and the esports division, is because we got that revelation that the directors for Street Fighter 6, Nakayama and Matsumoto, were completely blindsided as well as the rest of us by this announcement to go pay-per-view. You know, Nakayama had that vague tweet where he mentioned the artwork where he's like, oh, actually, this artwork for Capcom Cup is owned by the esports division. The esports division is a completely separate division from the Street Fighter 6 dev team, so I don't control this. Please release this artwork, like putting out this tweet during all this chaos where everyone's taking a dump on Capcom for making pay-per-view. And then when I actually replied to that tweet at saying, hey, isn't it weird that you guys are in a separate division? Like, why are they charging for pay-per-view? And he's like, yeah, believe it or not, we're a completely separate division, right? The director of Street Fighter 6 coming out and like publicly distancing themselves and saying, hey, we're going to get to the bottom of this. We're going to figure out internally. Please be patient, which was crazy to see. This announcement, you know, they sit down together and we have the first time we actually see an actual representative from the esports division, Tetsuya Tabuchi. Sorry if I mispronounced the name. I'm really trying here. Tetsuya Tabuchi. He comes onto the screen. He's looking a little seasoned. He's got a suit and tie on. He's well-groomed, has his hair parted very nicely, and his title wraps around his name. Did you see his title, Idom? Did you see? Yeah. It's crazy, right? Do you have a title like that? You just have Capcom Cup champion. Do you have a title like E-Character Licensed Business Division, Global Esports Business Department, Deputy Head, and General Manager?
You know, one day I'll reach that kind of status, but that day is very far away.
I mean, he's title mogging everybody right now, man. It's insane. I cannot believe how many words they crammed into that title. It's kind of just like, I don't know, corporate jargon slop. Like, why does he have so many titles? Anyways, the point being, him coming out and being the suit behind the esports division, it's so funny to see the contrast between him and Matsumoto. Like, they're sitting at the table together trying to be very polite and do this announcement. Clearly, like, a PR strategy to show, hey, the esports division and the dev team, we're together on this. We're not in a silo anymore. We're working together. Like, literally the physical juxtaposition to show the correction of the silo decision-making in the departments. But when they're sitting next to each other, you see, like, Tabuchi with his suit and tie, and he's looking well-groomed. And then Matsumoto with like the low taper fade looking type of cut, and he has like the single button on the top of the striped shirt, like and he's showing the white shirt underneath, just so casual, like, you know, he has a style going on. And I'm like, dude, is there like not a better physical representation of the difference here? Like, I don't like judging a book by its cover. But am I crazy in seeing this? Like, the esports guy who made pay-per-view next to the guy making the product, like, how different it seems?
They're all, I mean, they're trying to get along. I mean, they kind of already said they don't talk much. They probably have like two insanely different kind of perspectives on everything. So they probably, you know, nobody got the dress code right. One guy came ready with a suit, and the other guy was like, hey man, I'm just, you know, put on a nice shirt and, you know, come and hang out. So they're probably just so far apart. But I did like that they did this in general, because it does show they're trying at least.
Are they trying? I don't know. Here's my take. My issue with the pay-per-view, of course, as I've talked about many times, is that I just think structurally, fundamentally, it does not make sense for what the Capcom Cup should be. And also, I think structurally as a company, the fact that they have separate esports divisions and development divisions, and that the esports division is being judged on its net revenue gain or loss independently, is very dumb. There was a stat line floating around a while ago when the pay-per-view news first broke about how the esports division is losing like $7 million a year or something like that. But it's not meant to make a profit in my mind independently. You're supposed to try to get metrics on how many recurring customers and sales is that driving towards the main product. It's a marketing cost, right? That's the the view of this. And sure, you can recoup some revenue via sponsorships. Like there's other ways to offset your losses and the expense, of course. Maybe cutting the prize pool from $1 million to 500,000. Like boom, there's big.
Mhm.
You're saving a significant percent of your loss right there immediately. But structurally, they're so different. Like they're supposed to be the same cohesive team in some sense, right? Like they're separate teams, but the same goal: sell a lot of copies of Street Fighter 6 and sell DLC. Like that's your goal. It's to make money on the product, not to make money on ticketing sales for selling tournaments. This is not Jabali trying to sell tickets to CEO, right? Like that's not what this part of the company, in my view, should be. It's meant to drive customers and awareness to the core product. Therefore, anything you do to limit someone casually scrolling by on Twitch or YouTube who's not part of the core audience to see the hype and buzz around the event and get excited about fighting games and esports is literally just pulling the rug from underneath your own feet. Yes, you're going to monetize the existing audience. You're going to make some money on the hardcore fans who exist today, but you're cutting off circulation and growth and any natural hype and buzz around your marketing, which is trying to sell the product of Street Fighter 6. So it doesn't matter how cheap you make it. If you put up a paywall, the global celebration of Street Fighter is immediately limited in its reach. And I just think I think it's dumb for them to do. I think it's going to be potentially disastrous for their long-term growth.
I think the problem was that this was already kind of like set in stone. Obviously, when the esports division came out and said it's going to be $40, everyone was like shocked. But you can't even change it. They already had like their own. I don't remember the name of the website, but they have their own website to kind of stream Capcom Cup. You can't go back on that. It's already set in stone. Is your trap. You have to make it pay-per-view. Obviously, now we're lucky that it's $10 instead of $40. So maybe more people. I even know people at my local who said, "Oh yeah, now I'll buy it now that it's much cheaper." Saving $30. But I think they're just trying to save face. Obviously, next year I don't think it'll be pay-per-view because that just wouldn't make any sense. It would kind of, like you said, you're limiting the people who could watch. But I think they're just trying to save face now and get through this year so they could like rectify all that stuff next year.
I'm not sure about that because here's two things. I don't remember the exact streaming platform off the top of my head from before. They changed, though, the pay-per-view broadcasting partner. So I don't know if that means they completely canceled their old contract and reworked it, but the platform they're on now, the SPWN, I saw people commenting on how this is a much smaller pay-per-view platform, and the previous one they were on was like the mainstream known service in Japan because pay-per-view is a common thing they use, and in fact, they already do that for Street Fighter League Japan. They've done pay-per-view, right? That was the known platform to Japanese audiences that they've leveraged for other events. So this Spawn, maybe it's what it's supposed to be short for, SPWN, is a super small, it's a way smaller company compared to the previous partner. So I don't know if they managed to get their way out of the contract entirely. Like maybe there was a window there where they completely broke free and managed to escape, and then they could have potentially been without liability to any partners about doing a event production. Because I kind of agreed with you at first, like maybe they're stuck to it. Like they signed an agreement. But now I'm a little unsure. I think they probably had a way out, but they just wanted to cut down on the price. Like I think if they really wanted to, I think Capcom could have found their way out of this. I think this was a strategic move because there's still the incentive structurally in the company for the esports division to make money. I think our buddy Tabuchi here, his salary and his job depends on him making money for this esports business. I think that's the fundamental issue here, is that they are required to make money and prove to the higher up show return on investment for esports specifically. But what they need is better metrics to show, hey, does esports at all help to drive long-term brand awareness, loyalty, and sales to Street Fighter 6, the product? And I feel like in my bones, I'm not there. I'm not a fly on the wall. I can't confirm. I feel like that's missing. That understanding is totally missing in Capcom because that's not how esports for any successful esports product works. I will also say, though, Street Fighter League Japan, they went pay-per-view. You're saying it's going to go away. Street Fighter League Japan pay-per-view, Capcom posted on their financial report update, it was the most successful pay-per-view event they have ever done. More sales and revenue than they've ever made. They were hyping that up about how the most recent Street Fighter League Japan was like, boom, big money, baby. We're raking in the dough. So I don't know about this. I don't know if this is going to fail or not for their
I
standards if Japan buys in.
I actually didn't know that their Street Fighter League, their latest one, did so well. So actually, I mean, I guess it will always, time will tell. Obviously, after Capcom Cup, maybe they'll put out the number. Maybe they'll be like, yeah, this is the most successful Capcom Cup ever. But then it kind of goes back to what you're saying. Street Fighter 6 will just be a Japan only game because a lot of people in other regions will lose interest and kind of just like fall off or get kind of bored or are very uninterested. So I can see what you're saying there. I do think, however, and I'm probably speaking for a very, very small percentile, I do think more people are going to buy it now that it's $10 though.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think if you ignore the structural problems with it, like my concern is, it annoys me when people make this critique, like, oh, if you're broke, just say so. You know what I mean? Like, oh, wow, you can't afford to support something you're passionate about and afford to support the scene. I could give Capcom thousands of dollars right now. Like, I could just give them money. I want to give them money. I want to, if they offered a pay-per-view, like, expert package or premium package is what the word I'm searching for. Less ads, more exclusive content. And even if it was kind of shitty and not that worth it, I would pay $50 for that. You get what I'm saying? Like, let the people who can afford to pay it pay for extras, even if it's not that much extra, as a means of capitalizing on the goodwill of the audience without limiting access from organic buzz and publicity for your main event. This is the global culmination of a year-long esports event from people from around the planet, TOs, communities, all putting in efforts to run their own tournaments which feed players into the Capcom Cup. This is not a holistically Capcom-only product. There's a lot of people doing free labor for Capcom to make this happen from around the globe, and then you're trying to then paywall it at the end to exclude those people and force them to pay to even watch the fruits of their own labor. And on top of that, you're not going to have that organic experience of new people who they don't know that they're fans yet. How is a new fan supposed to find this? How is that supposed to happen? You know, I got into EVO by watching EVO 2011 for free on a laptop at my friend's house. None of my friends were fighting game fans at all. I played Street Fighter 4 casually on the side. I pulled that up. We watched PR Rog versus Viscant MVC 3 Grand Finals. And when he did Tron Bond Command Grab level 3 to Phoenix to reset that bracket, everyone popped the fuck off. We barely knew what we were watching. I knew a little bit more than them. They knew way less. They knew nothing about it than me. And we all went out and bought Marvel 3. Every single one of us. That moment is gone. As soon as you put up that paywall, no one is buying this. We were a bunch of high schoolers. We don't have any money for that, first of all, but there's no way to just scroll by and see this. What? I feel like I'm going crazy. Like, is that not dumb to prevent people from finding this organically? Is anyone outside of Japan watching Street Fighter League Japan? I have not seen a single Street Fighter League Japan final since they implemented the paywall. Not a single one. Does anyone outside Japan watch it?
I actually would probably beg to differ because I've seen it firsthand. At Frosty, I think Jack, Dual Kevin, and I think Mena as well. I think they all bought in. Obviously, you're kind of right though, because those are like, the sweatiest of the sweatiest players. They're obviously gonna buy it.
They're the 0.001% of the competitive players.
Yeah. They're gonna buy it regardless. But I get what you're saying too. Like the people who, just scrolling Twitter, because even like you said, I think my first tournament I ever saw was Final Round, the one where Kusuro won with Rocket, Frank West, and Beautiful Joe. And like I showed that to my friends and we all got like super excited, like, yo, this is sick, this is godlike. But yeah, even just trying to scroll Capcom Cup, you wouldn't be able to find it. But at the same time, I guess they're also kind of thinking this is the Super Bowl of your tournament. Obviously is going to be, harder to see. You could obviously watch, smaller tournaments like a CEO or a Combo Breaker, but when you want to watch the Super Bowl, you better pay up. I think that's maybe their logic behind going into it.
Yeah, I mean, their logic is that the Japanese audience is used to this. They're conditioned to expect this, and they're willing, and that's their domestic audience, and it's by far their largest audience. So business-wise, I do see the potential for Capcom to make a buttload of money in the short term, 100%. They're starting to it's like the inshitification of the Capcom Pro Tour, right? Like they've captured the audience. They finally had an explosion of popularity, and it's even though it's only mostly localized in Japan. They're about maybe 80% of the existing player base. By the way, like they outnumber the rest of the world combined by orders of magnitude. And they now want to monetize it even more aggressively. So like I get that they're gonna make money short term. I don't want to support it structurally, fundamentally, because I don't think it's going to be good for the long-term health of their own esports initiative. That's my prediction. And I just feel like it's fundamentally kind of disrespectful to the people who are working on the tour to make this actually happen, because it's not just a Capcom-only product. I feel totally fine with Capcom monetizing Street Fighter League, for example, because that is through and through Capcom's premium esports product. They own it top to bottom. They run the whole thing. Them monetizing the finals, like, yeah, it'd be annoying, I guess, as a consumer, but I feel much less like wronged by it. It's their prerogative. That is how I feel. That they own that top to bottom. They wanted to monetize it. Go ahead. The Capcom Pro Tour, however, they don't own it top to bottom. They fundamentally do not. Like, they run the final event, but they don't own the qualifying events. They don't own the work put in by the rest of the community. And beyond that, the other main point is I think you're limiting your growth. That is supposed to be the world celebration of Street Fighter. I just think it's kind of silly, but they will make money. I just want to get the exact quote real quick, and I'll go back to you, Adam, about the business report, the financial report from Capcom. They said that for Capcom's Japan Premier Esports Team League achieved record-breaking results at its grand final event, where both paid live stream viewership and on-site admission ticket sales reached all-time highs. And so they gave big props to Team Reject for winning. They gave out 9 million yen in championship prizes, and it was a big success. So they're flexing that in their financial report at a time when also Street Fighter 6 has outpaced sales for Monster Hunter, and it's taken the throne as the top-selling game right now in the past quarter for Capcom. So it's literally their best-selling product 3 years after release for Capcom, period. So it's moving units. Like, they're doing anything they can to make money in Japan right now off Street Fighter.
Well, the Monster Hunter thing is different because that game's actually getting kind of like a little bit of hate right now. So the Monster Hunter is kind of just an awkward spot. But at the same time, I kind of going with what you're saying. I feel like charging for Street Fighter League Japan's not surprising, just because we're kind of not used to it. I feel like it would be more upsetting if they charged for like Street Fighter League American Final. Like, I feel like we would be more we would be more upset if we were used to that. I feel like the reason why Capcom Cup is just people are hating for putting a paywall behind Capcom Cup. It's just we're just so used to watching it for free anyway. Yeah. So that's kind of the other issue. I'm very curious because they keep saying like the numbers in Japan keep going up and up and up, and people keep buying it. I just want to know, are they not used to like I'm not condoning this, like a Stream East or watching it like online, like just by like some sort of
well, different culture, man.
I guess it's a different culture.
So I don't want to speak like authoritatively on this, but my impression and what I've heard, I've done a little bit of research into that, is that Japan, we're generalizing here, of course. Everyone's no culture is a monolith or anything like that, but the general trend is that there's a lot more, first of all, pride in domestic products and companies, and there's also a lot. Piracy is very frowned upon, and even things like modding is very frowned upon, and that's why you see companies like Nintendo like really strictly enforce copyright IP. And doing DMCA takedowns and sending out threatening notices to tournament organizers and things like that when it comes to Smash Brothers. That's why Project M got shut down, the mod of making Brawl more like Melee-like. That's why you had all the collapse of the esports efforts for the Smash scene. And in general, an example I can think of, one of the top Ultimate players recently got in major trouble with the Japanese Ultimate community because he had accidentally left a mod on, which is used, I believe, for training. I forget the specifics of the mod. it's a mod that, because Smash is not built for good online play or for training. Like,
Yeah,
so he
yeah.
had a mod on that, and maybe it modified the online play to a degree or something like that. Maybe lower input delay, something. And the community blew up. Like, he was basically getting canceled for using a mod that was meant to like make the competitive experience better. And it was like, you're not supposed to mod the game. Like, you should be banned. Like, that was the reactions.
Interesting. I never knew that. That's actually a very interesting story.
So I think in general the piracy thing is like much more enforced as well and really taboo. So it's a completely different culture. There's a pride in like being able to pay to support for something you like, which I get as well. Like, I would be proud to support Capcom in a way I feel good about.
100%. Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I think the biggest problem to the people from American audience is that I do agree with you that the esports audience has been too conditioned to accept things for free. Because, like I said, I would be okay with pay-per-view for Street Fighter League products. I would still be bummed as an American audience expectations, but I would get it a lot more. People would be fucking pissed. American people would be raging.
Oh,
but
no, I could only imagine. Yeah.
Yeah. I think they'd have less ground to stand on there. That's more like expectations of the audience, and Capcom needs to satisfy the expectations of the audience for growth. But, like, I would be less morally against it. It would be my personal stance. Like, if I get past my initial, like, for me as a consumer, that sucks. I'm like, yeah, I guess they kind of they own it. And then it might fail because people might not buy it. Like, I think it would fail. If Street Fighter League USA went pay-per-view, I think it would collapse. I think it would not work. People would not pay for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think the Japanese audience is just way more ready. Like, they accept this, and they've been spending so much money on Street Fighter League Japan. So it's just very different, the reactions, man. I got a lot of people. I got some comments on my videos talking about this from Japanese audience saying like, "Oh, you guys are so selfish or don't want to pay for anything." And it's like, dude, the main takeaway here is that Capcom needs to give us ways to give them money. It's insane. I can't buy costumes. I can't buy colors. There's like nothing for me to give them money. They don't make DLC content.
You could buy all the Avatar Slop. What do you say? There's plenty of stuff you could actually buy. What do we say? And the Avatar stuff is really popular in other.
You got me there. You got me there.
Yeah. There's stuff to buy. You probably don't want it, but there is stuff to buy.
If they sold an Avatar DLC slop that was like, hey, this is like supported in the Capcom Pro Tour, even if it did nothing, they just said that and it went to the same bank account and statement, I would buy it. You get what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
I would be willing to feel like I'm donating to the cause of supporting the esports initiative. If the Avatar slop said Capcom Pro Tour, and that's me casting my vote with my wallet to say, hey, I enjoy this product, I would buy it. I think that's what they're missing. They're missing that leverage. And also, like, yeah, they're still not making. We know the audiences are segmented, dude. The people buying the Avatar slop are one audience, and the people buying stuff for the Fighting Ground are a different audience. They don't give anything for the Fighting Ground audience. And the Fighting Ground audience is going to be a lot of the people who watch the Capcom Pro Tour.
Yeah. But there's way more people in the Battle Hub, the Battle Hubbers, the Avatar slop enjoyers. There's way more people in that audience than in the Fighting Ground, the sweaty people.
Sure. You're not wrong. I could see that. I could see that being just like their initiative anyways. Hey, the Pro Tour is already advertising to the Battle Hub people. They get a little bit more awareness from that, and they get into our Avatar slop system.
I've always
could be one angle.
I've always had like this kind of theory. If you want to teach somebody how to play guitar, for example, you wouldn't go up to a bass player or somebody who already knows how to play an instrument because they're already invested in playing the instrument. You don't want somebody new to learn how to play it. So I guess in Capcom's eyes, it's kind of the same thing. If the guy is already playing, Street Fighter, and he has like 1 billion hours on Street Fighter, they're gonna be there no matter what. You're always there. You want to get the new people in.
Okay, but I agree with you. But what you just said is completely contradictory to doing pay-per-view.
Oh, okay.
Which is my point.
I don't think the sweats are buying the pay-per-view. Well, I don't think all the sweats are gonna buy the pay-per-view, basically.
Right, but the people who are buying the pay-per-view are people who are already entrenched into the ecosystem for the Capcom Pro Tour. So Yeah, so you got to go even more casual. Think about someone who does never watch a tournament in their life. They don't even know fighting game tournaments exist or Street Fighter tournaments exist. That's the most of the world. That's the vast majority of the world. This is an opportunity for organic buzz to catch people just scrolling through Twitter, things being going viral or a trending tab, or scrolling through YouTube recommendations or Twitch and it gets promoted or it has a lot of viewership. That's how people find things. It just pops up because it's either like trending or has a lot of viewership. It gets more eyeballs on it. That's how viewership works.
I guess that's why they're trying to put Capcom Cup in the Battle Hub to get those people in. Maybe that's the real trick. You put it in the Battle Hub, then they get super invested, and then they pay $10 now to watch the rest of Capcom Cup.
Yeah, let's touch on the Battle Hub streaming. So this is something we talked about a bunch, that it should be in there, and I love that change. However, I don't like it as a trade-off, as like, we have to do pay-per-view, but you can watch in the Battle Hub. I think it should just be in the Battle Hub in general for free and free elsewhere, just to catch people passing by. I think that's a great change, of course. It should be there for that. But there's a lot of asterisks and qualifications on that statement of it being available for free in the Battle Hub. They make it very clear that this might not work. Like, the servers might be overloaded, there might be technical issues, and it might not work. Even when it is working, you're not going to have any commentary, and certain audio and certain things are not going to be present in that stream broadcast. So you might not be able to even tell what part of the tournament bracket you're in or any context. It's going to be maybe a little bit confusing, even if it works on a technical level. And on top of that, there's limited viewer capacity. It's limited by the capacity of the Battle Hub. So if you do the math with like the existing Battle Hubs, it's less than 10,000 people max. It might be even closer to like 7,000 that is currently supported with the number of Battle Hubs available, right? So they only hold like 100 people each. So there's a certain limited number of servers per region. So 10,000 people max. Capcom Cup last year had about 350,000? Yeah, 354,000 peak viewership. So less than 10% of those can watch at best case scenario in the Battle Hub. So even if you're trying to sell this alternative, like Street Fighter 6 goes on sale, buy that watching the Battle Hub, it'll probably fill up really quick. So it's not going to be a complete replacement, no matter what, to buying the pay-per-view.
Yeah, I mean, not everyone, obviously, all those 354,000 viewers, not all of them own the game, so you're dodging a bullet there. But I get your point. I just hope that the Battle Hub stream isn't piss poor. Like, I remember people were saying during the Street Fighter League one, like, the matches were all out of sync. It was very choppy, like it was running at like 140p. So I hope that doesn't happen, and I hope you can actually watch. The no commentary thing does kind of bother me a bit. Like, the commentators work very hard, but I feel like you could kind of look past that. But all the other ones, I just hope it looks nice, because it is cool, and Battle Hub is supposed to be like the social space, and that's supposed to get people more embedded in community, make friends, all that stuff. So I think all that stuff is really cool. But if you're in a community, and I mean, if you're in the Battle Hub and everyone's just complaining about, I can't even watch I see like a pixel of my doing EX fan, I don't really care about then it's just kind of like, what was the point of this? It's just kind of a waste of time.
Yeah, I hope it works well. I mean, this is one of the initiatives I really support. I think that's sick. I think that's awesome. I would love more integration into the product itself. Anything to remove that sort of jumping hoop from the product to the community and the esports initiative I'm always all for it, because it should all be the platform should be the game. We always rely on external platforms to make these connections for us. We rely on Twitter, we rely on YouTube, Twitch, whatever. Social media is the way that we're able to actually make this all happen. And there's very little integration within the game itself. And if there is, it might be a little announcement, a little notification on pop-up when you open the game that you quickly ignore, right? Like, there's not that many organic and engaging ways to bridge that gap. I think this is sick. I hope it does work on a technical level. And if it doesn't, I hope they keep working, ironing out the kinks, and continue that in the future. But like I said, I just don't view it as an alternative, like a consolation prize for pay-per-view, because it's just not going to work that way. They even also say in the slide that mentions the live streaming trial at Battle Hub, it says in a little asterisk at the bottom, co-streaming of Battle Hub live streams is not possible. Which I thought is a very fun. I was like, Is that a challenge? Like, you mean it's not possible? I'm pretty sure it's possible. I'm very certain it's possible for me to open up the game during this on Saturday, Sunday, and see the Battle Hub and stream it.
Mhm.
So is that just like a little bit of a threat? Like you got to do a DMCA takedown?
The black vans are going to be at your door, Brian. You gotta be ready. I wouldn't go against the Capcom.
Yeah, maybe, man.
It is funny too, because you're kind of right with the social media kind of telling you everything. It is weird that even for Street Fighter, because they do this in Guilty Gear right now, why is there no, hey, CEO just happened, here's your champion Lashar, here's a free Ed color because he played Ed in Grand Final. I'm very surprised that Street Fighter doesn't take more advantage of that or just talk about the esports side of things, because like the hub really is like the social link for competitive play. Well, not competitive play, but like just from people playing the game in general. They could definitely prop up a lot of stuff in the Battle Hub.
Yeah, I think they do. Like I said, they do summon that notification pop up when the game opens. I can't think of any examples on the top of my head, but they've done like Sage Am Slam, for example, was in there. They added Sage Am Slam stickers. Like they've done integrations, and I think they've done Evo or maybe Capcom Cup, like some little stickers or some news pop up.
But I meant more like just for like the players, like, hey, this guy won the tournament, this guy won this CPT event, and this was a big deal kind of thing,
Right.
or like a cool like in Street Fighter 5 actually, I have a Capcom Cup 2019 winner title, and it's only my title. Just something like that. Hey, yeah, it'd be like, hey, you won CEO 2025. Here's a special title on your account.
They pulled away from that. They used to do the costumes as well. You and Mena got a costume, for example. Like, I can understand that a little bit. I think part of the strategy is it's not worth the headache to try to associate yourself with people in real life, because who knows, your brand is tied to these people. So there might be that sort of distancing. But in general, the only thing that they can do or have shown the capacity to do right now is just like a pop up when you open the game, like a news announcement. And that's people just I just smash through that. Like I skip, people don't read that. So it's not very engaging. So the Battle Hub, I think on the screen, like that's a cool organic way to integrate it. I like that. Like any initiative like that to make it part of the physical space of the Battle Hub is really cool. And if they continue to do that, like I would be more in the Battle Hub myself. Like I'm interested in going to the Battle Hub to see the Capcom Cup thing. Like that to me would actually get me even a hardcore player who doesn't care about Battle Hub for the most part. Personally, I love it as a feature. It's just I don't go there myself personally. I would actually be booting it up more often for those esports integrations. And on the other hand, the biggest win is the people who go there for fun would be exposed to that and be able to check that out if they want. The funnel of the casual to the esports pipeline is the important part there, in my opinion.
Yeah, Brian, you're the sweat ruining the game, man. You're the sweat going straight into fighting ground. You're the 1%er who's ruining the game for the 99%.
What? I killed the avatar battle scene because I didn't support it. I didn't dress up. I'm using the default. I'm playing as John Street Fighter over here, and I all I can do is Shoryuken and Hadoken. I'm killing avatar battles. It's my fault?
Yeah, it is actually 100% your fault.
Well, you know what? You know whose fault it is for killing fighting games? Maybe the developers themselves. We're gonna use that as a little segue here. The other big topic going around is the issues with fighting game design and limiting their potential and reach, which of course, it's a cyclical topic for the most part. But we have a big reason for this to kick off again. A big essay went out by Wheatbix, and they put out the essay or article, Fighting Games Have a Product Design Problem. And this was a really in-depth, really well-written article by Wheatbix, and they've done a lot of contributions to the scene as well over the years. They worked on some other like Tekken projects, and they're also developers as well. So it was a very in-depth article and very interesting and started a lot of conversation. And I would have to imagine, even though I don't think it was mentioned by name in the article too much, that the failure to launch or failure to maintain their current dev roster, the layoffs for 2XKO probably sparked this conversation a little bit, as Adam here is wearing his 2XKO hoodie.
This is a very comfortable hoodie. This is a great hoodie.
Cozy hoodie for a great game. But people were definitely discussing, like, dissecting the reasons for why 2XKO maybe failed to attract an audience to support its initial dev roster size. And just to add on to that, 2XKO still exists. It's still 80 devs working on it at least. So who knows where that will go from here. But as they said in the announcement, it didn't like blow up the way they thought it would. And this article talks a lot about the history of the genre, brings in the numbers, and talks about how developers have been sidestepping the big wins that they could have to 10x, 100x the audience size when games like Deadlock and other games are larger right now than all the fighting games combined. The current player count for Deadlock, concurrent player count is going like over 150k concurrent players. It's been like a big news story, and that game is not even released yet. It's in a closed beta right now, and that dwarfs all fighting games combined in their player counts. So, really interesting article. There's some things I agree with, some things I don't agree with, but I do agree overall that there are ways that fighting games absolutely could grow in the genre, and I definitely do agree the core sentiment that this whole focus on modifying the game mechanics to appease a wider audience, changing the games to be more simple or to be more streamlined or straightforward, easy to get into, the core game mechanics does not matter. The problem is elsewhere.
So I feel like that is so backwards. I don't know, it's so weird to me. I feel like gameplay has to matter a lot, but fighting games wouldn't ever show that. I'm not the biggest fan of how SF6 play. There are also kind of other games that kind of put that to different perspective too. But for a lot of people, gameplay doesn't matter at all because I always bring up these two comparisons: Marvel Infinite and Dragon Ball Fighter. Marvel Infinite has way better gameplay. There's way more depth. There's way more everything. But it kind of goes back to even 2XKO, for example, as well. The gameplay isn't going to hook the people onto the game. It's everything around the gameplay that's way more important. But I feel like that's so backwards. But history shows gameplay doesn't really matter. And it's so baffling to me, in my opinion, as well.
So do you agree or disagree with that idea? And just to give like more nuance to the take, right? I don't think that Wheatbix was arguing that the gameplay doesn't matter. The gameplay does matter heavily for games being engaging after the 100th hour, so like exact quote from the article. So they're saying that trying to make concessions in the gameplay that are meant to invite a new audience in, that doesn't matter. That's not effective at actually growing substantially orders of magnitude the audience for the games, and in fact can often serve to alienate existing and hardcore players in the niche, right? Removing jank interactions, removing nuance, removing difficulty, and certain things that are actually satisfying to players really entrenched in the genre, doesn't serve to bring in the new audience, but maybe alienates existing players. That's kind of like a bit of the core thesis that they use to then build on their points of like what the product design could improve on. So I definitely agree with that, in my opinion. I don't think making games simpler and simpler is going to vastly increase your audience reach. I do think that it can, within a certain order of magnitude, increase your popularity and awareness by making the game easier to get into for the people on the fence about partaking in a fighting game, and also just organically attract a few new members to your audience. But I definitely agree for like the massive explosion like you see with like a Street Fighter 2 or a different game, it's more about the product. I agree with that take.
The product is way more important than any sort of gameplay, because even for like some of the harder games, some of the most hard games are super popular, Street Fighter 4. So, but it also kind of goes back to, it's weird because I watched the Diaphone video, and Diaphone had like a video way back when, and it was something like a rubric on how he was grading fighting game. And it was a fun little rubric, fun little thing, but like you would rate everything out of 5. But even I did the little rubric myself, and I think I gave Street Fighter 6's gameplay like a 2 out of 5, but it was still the best fighting game out, even though I gave the gameplay a 2 out of 5, which is so confusing. But honestly, I couldn't even go anything else wrong with 6 aside from the gameplay. But that goes to show gameplay isn't the only thing that matters. But like I said, for me, playing other genre, gameplay is always number one for me. Why would I play a game if the gameplay is kind of not great?
Right. I mean, for competitive
players,
players, that's important. And I think one thing this article didn't, maybe I missed it. I read it twice. I watched FDX reread it again, just to make sure I got it. It's a very lengthy article, has a lot of good points. So just to be clear, guys, I do recommend highly checking this out. There's a lot of nuance in here. And so we're going to be bouncing around between different points. And I also want to take maybe another step back to talk about what they mean by product, product quality. Like there's an answer or a section earlier which talks about like any jabroni off of Evo can tell you that a fighting game needs crossplay, needs single player content, needs functional anti-cheat, needs functional online code, needs matchmaking systems that can quickly find evenly matched opponents with good connections, needs rank systems that accurately rate player skill and cannot be easily gamed, and needs a good practice mode to make it easy to test and get comprehensive detail about the core game mechanics. That's like the requirement for like just to be a starting fighting game. And most fighting games don't meet that. The vast majority of fighting games don't meet that bare minimum requirement of a decent video game product.
I don't think there's any fighting game that chucks every single one of those boxes, to be honest. There's none. There's actually zero.
Yeah, maybe zero, right? Street Fighter 6, it would be falling in the anti-cheat. There is cheating in Street Fighter 6 or scripts for auto DI, auto parry, auto whatever, auto anti-air. Those definitely exist. That would be the main one, I think, from this list. I think maybe the matchmaking is pretty good. It could be better. Yeah. There was issues with matchmaking though. I definitely think matchmaking could be improved. They lock you into regional matchmaking lobbies and prevent certain regions from accessing each other. So there's definitely an issue with that, I believe. So think about all the people you play in an online tournament you have perfect connections with, but you'll never play them in ranked. That happens to me.
I thought you just expand the search horizon. Like I think it's like you have a regional one and then you like put it like I think it's like expanded or something. I thought that was just the easy fix for it.
Yeah, but it improved it, but I just don't think it's perfect, and that user experience isn't perfect to have to like modify this menu. It should just work. I don't know. Like I still find don't have proof. My suspicion is it's still not working properly. You get what I'm saying? I don't have proof of it though. But it's pretty good overall. Best we've ever had. It's Street Fighter 6 is the best we've had on almost all these fronts except for the anti-cheat.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah. So that's why, and a large part, I definitely think that's why Street Fighter 6 is taking off. Of course, it's the best fighting game product we've ever had. Still doesn't check all the boxes of what people want, but it's the best one we've ever had. But yeah, it's interesting how games like Deadlock, for example, unapologetically difficult, huge amount of players, but it's a multiplayer only game, which I think goes along with like your point about like how this is confusing to your perspective because you just care about the gameplay. Not every genre has to go through these hoops, but I think there's a reason for that. But it's true, like not every game is judged to this standard. Does Valorant have single player game modes? No, it doesn't have this crap, right? But why do fighting games have to do that? So I do think there's a reason for that. I think fighting games do have to do that still, but other examples of big popular competitive games have dodged that responsibility for a while. I think a part of that is just cultural context.
I also think fighting games are like RPGs where you're kind of expecting single player content at this point. It's not like a shooter where like if I boot up a Valorant, I'm just getting multiplayer. I think like the old like 2XKO tried to do it, and 2XKO was getting so much flack for not having single player stuff. Same with Street Fighter 5. You know, Capcom was thinking, hey, you know, if everyone just plays online and has fun and playing against each other, people will have fun. But then so many people gave them so much flack for not having story modes and, you know, arcade modes and all that stuff. So it is weird. I feel like fighting games are they're not placed in the same category as FPS games, that FPS games could get away with that. And they're more in like an adventure game kind of realm where like, yeah, I'm expecting single player and multiplayer is there. That's cool, I guess.
Yeah, but that's what I mean by the cultural context. Here's I don't think they touched on that distinction heavily on this article. They touched on a lot of other things, but that's one thing I thought was very interesting. Why are fighting games held to that standard when other genres are not? And I think it's the cultural context of this all. We've culturally built up the skill to play first-person shooters. It's very rare for someone to have their first-person shooter be a Valorant or whatever. And at that point, there's enough exposure to it via social media and other people playing it and it being a team game. There's a lot of other ways to ease that barrier to entry if it is your first ever experience with the genre. But for the most part, we have 20, 30 years of campaign-based single-player first-person shooters. Go back to GoldenEye, man. That's where it all began. We've built up this cultural context and awareness of the genre and its mechanisms, its mechanics, its tropes, how it operates. And by the time you get to a new first-person shooter, you already have decades of experience if you're an older gamer, right? And for newer gamers, you know, they have this whole cultural awareness. They see people play it. Maybe they can hop right into the multiplayer genre and just build it from that point. But there's a lot of exposure to actually playing the game with single player content. And I mean, you're actually playing the game. Sure, it's not like competitive shooting and you have like infinite health refills and other ways to make it easier potentially, but you're aiming, you're moving, you're shooting, you're doing the mechanics, and those translate directly into the multiplayer experience, 1-to-1, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's why shooters are allowed to get away with that. Now, the Deadlock and the MOBA one is a little bit like that argument starts to fall apart a little bit, I would argue. And like for StarCraft as well, I think StarCraft 1 had some single player content as well, if I remember correctly, but I'm very bad on the history of StarCraft and MOBAs in general. Once you get into like League of Legends and all that. So those products didn't have it, but they were better free-to-play products. Like League of Legends was a great free-to-play product, and that's why it kind of kickstarted the whole MOBA genre in that direction, right? So I think that awareness of how ubiquitous League of Legends and Dota became allowed you to have a game like Deadlock because they broke through. And so fighting games, they broke through it, and they peaked with Street Fighter 2 in the 90s and Tekken 3 and all that. But they haven't evolved since then, and they regressed in many ways. They regressed in their single-player content. And the problem the author also argues is that the single-player content has never translated, ever, in like any fighting game, to actual mastery of the mechanics in the core game itself. Usually you can just win by mashing.
Well, that's true. But I don't think any fighting game wants to teach somebody, or you're scaring the person away if you make the single player too hard. Like it is kind of scary because, you know, in games like Elden Ring, if you face adversity, say there's a boss that's beating your ass, you gotta go back and fight the boss. I don't think people are like that with fighting games, which is why fighting games kind of get it kind of rough and it's kind of unfair. I think my most fun single player experience I've had in a fighting game is Super Smash Bros. Brawl. But all I did was just run through the story and, you know, jump at people and, hit people as Mario. So who cares?
Yeah. Subspace Emissary.
Yeah. That to me is the best one. Yeah, that's the best one. But it's so different for fighting games because they want to teach you how to play, but I feel like people aren't willing to learn.
Right. Well, I still disagree with your willing to learn thing. Let me. I think you got to reread this article, man. I disagree with that take entirely. But I will say there is an issue with fighting is where I think it's harder to make that jump of gamifying the single player and making it challenging and rewarding and a good game. You bring up Smash, it's a great example. Subspace Emissary does teach you how to play the game. You are using the mechanics. You're running around, you're jumping, you're using platforms, you're attacking, like you're actually having fun, and you're using the mechanics of the game that directly translate to some competency in playing in multiplayer. To some degree, you absolutely are. But that's also benefited by the type of game it is, a platform fighter with no motion controls and easy to pick up, hard, insanely difficult to master mechanics, right? It's benefited by the actual game design. It fits. Single player in fighting games has always been like a shitty beat 'em up on the side or a shitty open world RPG. You know what I mean? It's always been a detour genre that is not the core genre and worse. Or just like, usually just like a beat 'em up. Even when you're playing the core gameplay, the AI for the bosses is dumb, and it's just like the CPU, but maybe their health is artificially inflated or some other mechanic, but they're just reading your inputs. It's not satisfying in any feedback sense. It's still kind of like face rolling until you beat them, for the most part. And it doesn't require any understanding of the mechanics of blocking, frame advantage, combos, punishes. It requires none of that to make it through. Usually it requires finding cheese. You cheese the CPU. That's if the single player is based on the gameplay itself of the main game, it's cheesed. So the issue is solving that problem and doing that for 20 years, getting single player gameplay that actually onboards you with fun to the core mechanics of the game. Imagine a boss where you actually have to do a combo And the reason it has to be a combo is because if you do individual hits, it doesn't like break their armor off. You have to get a 7-hit combo, or else the armor regenerates. And you have to do it over again. Like that's their gimmick, and you have to learn the combo system along the way. Like there could be creative ways to start getting that there, and people don't mind challenges. That's wrong. People love Elden Ring. People love those things.
Yes.
It has to be fun somehow, though, which is it's not easy, but it has to be fun. It can be difficult, but it has to be fun and cool.
Yeah, okay. But even then, that kind of thing, the thing you brought up where if you need to do a 7-hit combo to break the ball, somebody's just going to find some, multi-hitting 7-hit special move that's just going to automatically break the armor or something.
Okay, people aren't then figure out a way, make it better.
Somebody's going to figure out some way to basically just like cheese a boss. Or there's going to be some YouTube video by some dude who's like, hey man, you can't beat this guy. Well, just do this. And then boom, really easy. It's different because games like Elden Ring are they're artificially different. Obviously, you could find cheesy ways to beat Elden Ring bosses as well. But at the same time, I feel like fighting games, people are just they're faster to get there. They want to get there faster and then I don't want to say not play the game, but they want to get to the real part of the fighting game, I feel like.
Well, to most people, the real part of the fighting game is single-player content. If you look at the Steam achievements for anyone who buys fighting games, we still need to work on the funnel. We still need to work on the top layer of the funnel to get people to actually pick up the game and then be tricked into learning the game. Like that's the whole point. And the genre as a whole hasn't achieved that. Like I that's my hypothesis, and I kind of agree with that sentiment. I think the genre as a whole hasn't built up that cultural context enough of teaching people the games and making it fun, because the single player content is doo-doo. It's bad. And if it is good, it actually ends up just siloing the audience. Like look at Street Fighter 6. I think Street Fighter 6 has pretty good single player content for a fighting game. Mm-hmm. I would never play that RPG because I don't like RPGs. And if you're going to make me play one, it better be the best damn RPG of all time. I'm not going to play a World Tour. That looks like a bad RPG to me. But people who like the genre, they played it. They enjoyed it. But at the end of it, you don't learn the game. There's some mini games in there that help you teach some mechanics, but it still doesn't serve the purpose of funneling people into understanding the game mechanics on a deeper level well enough, in my opinion. It's still just an RPG game.
Yeah, it's a fake RPG. It's no Final Fantasy. But basically, you're tricking the person into playing your game, but they're not learning the game. That's kind of what I'm saying. You have to learn the game, but that's where fighting games kind of fall off because people are unwilling to learn. I think so many people are just so unwilling. You're saying it's not fun to learn. I think people are just unwilling to learn in general. I think if I play a FPS game, by enough hours, I'm going to get good enough to shoot people, and I'm going to get better at shooting people. If I put 1,000 hours into Call of Duty, I'm going to eventually get good enough. I feel like even in fighting games, if I'm just going on and mashing and I'm just unwilling to learn, I'm going to be bad. I'm still just going to be mashing anyway.
Yeah, but there's a difference between being bad and being competent or like understanding the mechanics to a degree. Like you can always be bad at the game, but you can at least have content that makes you understand a little bit why you're bad. I think most people don't like fighting games to a large degree because they have no concept of defense, turn taking, anything. They're just mashing the whole time. If they played a single player mode that was engaging enough and was actually solved that design issue of making the single player engaging, fun, cool, and actually relevant to the core game mechanics and tricking you into learning, then that would be the way to solve the issue. And the problem is right now, like, yeah, the content that is successful for single player content gets people into the umbrella of the fighting game, and it gets people to buy the product and talk about it, but it doesn't translate to people who are competent in the multiplayer sense. That's the Tekken Force. I played Tekken Force as a kid. I love that shit. That shit, chicken. You know what I mean? Like, you're running around beating people up. You're eating chicken out of trash cans. It's fun as hell, but it's just like it's a beat 'em up. It's like an okay beat 'em up. It's not like the pinnacle of the genre. And same thing with like Street Fighter 6 World Tour. It's great that it has it because it's way better that it has it than doesn't. But it ends up creating differences in the audience and like what part of the game they interact with instead of funneling them at all to understanding the core mechanics, right? Most people who buy most fighting games boot up, play arcade mode, play a little bit of whatever single player content, and they don't play the online modes at all. That's the vast majority of the people who buy the games. So I think that is a big argument in this thing is like that's the problem to solve is the single player content that solves that issue And then I would argue that if we do that for long enough as a genre, eventually you could have the 2xKO.
Well, I don't think we're close to a 2xKO type of game. Well, we've gotten 2xKO, but I don't think 2xKO is close enough, and we're not big enough to funnel a 2xKO. Like, we don't have the player base to have, like, you know, Valorant and Deadlock can get away with it because there's so many players. But like, FGC is so small, I feel like that's very hard to happen. But
Sure.
even if you're tricking people into playing the single player content, that also goes back to my original point where the gameplay doesn't matter, because they're getting tricked into playing an RPG, but the gameplay of actual Street Fighter 6 and, you know, like you're saying, the turn taking, you know, minus frames, anti-air, whatever, all that stuff doesn't matter because everyone's just enjoying the, you know, flirting with Chun-Li on the fucking phone or something. I don't know. People are having fun doing that instead of actually doing the gameplay. And that goes back to the gameplay doesn't matter.
I agree with that. But what I'm saying is that's because that's the issue with the Street Fighter 6. That's what the issue with all single player content for all fighting games currently, is that it does not connect to the game mechanics at all. And that's a difficult design thing to solve. I think that's the game design issue. There's elements of rhythm games you could leverage, right? Like you could try to like gamify and have like a Guitar Hero track for punishing a boss or something. There's other ways that could be attempted to gamify and incorporate that into single player in a way that's engaging. That's the focus that has been ignored, is what Wheatbix argues for that portion of the essay.
I feel you on that, but also all these things you're bringing up. Why would I play Tekken Force? I could play Streets of Rage. Why would I play why would I play your Guitar Hero variant? I could just play Guitar Hero. Like, all that stuff is just kind of like, why do I just want
fight again? I just want you to imagine elements of those as inspiration. I'm not saying you're putting the fucking. I get the point is to create a new experience, and that is the failure of the genre. I get what you're saying. You can't do a shitty version of an existing genre, but worse, with a fighting game on the side. The point is there's no synergy between the two. What is a fighting game? What is a fighting game?
They're a one-on-one between two people, and I feel like the whole point of playing the genre is so me and you could fight in a video game and we could have a good time. I feel like that's the number one reason so many people play fighting games. I wanna beat you up, and we're gonna play and we're gonna fight. That's the number one thing.
Sure, I don't disagree with that, but then so every single player that's ever existed for a fighting game is just some crap on the side. And that's what I mean about shooting games. Like, shooting games have solved that issue. I mean, it's easier. I think it's easier for the genre, but you have a cinematic story mode with the Call of Duty does a story mode every year, man. And then they're able to do what is their multiplayer one? They got away with Warzone because they did the story mode every year for decades.
It's funny because the recent ones have been so bad, but they never get any flack. Nobody cares. They've been putting out garbage single players for so long, but everyone just still plays the multiplayer or played Zombies or Warzone or whatever it is. They don't care. You know,
at this point, they don't care. But what was Halo? Listen, before Halo was like one of the first MLG esports for shooting games, what was it? It was a fucking fantastic story mode.
Everyone got into Halo because of the story mode. That's the whole thing. They got into it because of the story mode. But you're getting better at Halo because you're playing the campaign. I get what you're saying, where the story mode is supposed to teach you how to play, but for fighting games, I feel like people aren't even learning because I can just mash Lariat as Geef and beat the game.
Exactly. We agree. I'm saying that what we're imagining the solution would be has not been imagined by human minds. That's what I'm trying. That's the argument.
I don't think we'll ever reach there. I don't think we could get there.
You think fundamentally fighting games are incompatible to ever create an engaging story mode that is both fun, engaging, and teaches people the mechanics and funnels people potentially into the multiplayer? You think that's impossible to exist?
I think the human mind doesn't want to learn. I think everyone got tricked into playing fighting games because they saw something cool online and got super invested, or there was a fighting game character they really liked and then they wanted to keep playing that character and got super invested.
I think it would be challenging to solve that single player content issue. I think that would be very challenging, and it would require a mind more brilliant than ours combined, Idom. That's what I think. I don't think we're going to solve that problem. I think it could exist, is what I'll say. I think in the infinite vast universe of game ideas, there could be the single player fighting game experience that solves that issue. But I understand it's hard to imagine right now with what we've seen over the years. I definitely agree with that.
It's funny because like I think the fighting games we've gotten have been really good. I mean, I think Street Fighter 6 is probably the best product fighting game we've ever gotten, but it's so funny because it goes back to you're going to get into it because you like a character or you've been playing Street Fighter for so long at this point. I think there's probably less than 2% of people who got Street Fighter 6 played the World Tour. Well, okay, that kind of goes back on. But they got invested because there was a character they just liked and then they stuck around. I feel like they didn't get into it because single player. And then all the people who are super invested are the people who just play Battle Hub all day. Or like have $10,000 on Battle.
Yes, that's the reality of it. It stands right now, and that's the problem with the genre. That's the current Street Fighter 6 sold millions and millions of copies. Are there millions of players? No, it still peaks online on Steam with 30,000, 40,000 from Japan. Yes, you're diagnosing the current issue for sure. But that's the mind space this essay is trying to get into of if that can be solved from that goal. Sounds like you're not as hopeful. I'm a little hopeful. I feel like there could be way more to be done.
I'm hopeful. I think all these modern fighting games are pretty good. I think 6 is the most popular has ever been. I mean, 6 is the most popular Street Fighter has ever been. People hate to say it, but I think Tekken 8 is probably the most popular Tekken's ever been. Guilty Gear's blowing up. You got 2SKO or whatever. I think we've gotten a lot of good games. The gameplay's been kind of meh, but I think we've gotten a decent amount of we've gotten a lot of good fighting games, and they're just getting bigger and bigger.
Yes, but they're getting bigger and bigger in orders of magnitude that are still insignificant compared to its boom in the 90s. So that's the statistical analysis of this is that we're talking in the tens of thousands of range. Street Fighter used to bring in $1 billion of revenue in the 90s. It's shrunk so much since then.
The problem is that we got so many other better games to play. I feel like other video games are just much better. Like before, Street Fighter 2 was revolutionary, but if you're comparing Street Fighter 2 to like Superman 64, that's not really fair. But if I gotta compare Street Fighter 6 to Elden Ring, like, come on, man, what are we doing?
That's exactly. The other games got better and fighting games didn't get better. That's yes, I agree.
But what can we can't do anything. We're trapped in our bubble.
You are not being imaginative, man. This is why we need someone else to figure this out. You're not trying to imagine a world where there could be a fighting game that actually solves these issues for single player. Anyways, we're going to disagree with here. I think you're taking the stance that you don't think there's that much more growth you can do in the single player realm. I think there's a ton of growth personally. The other thing I want to touch on that they mentioned in the article, so they had 3 main goals. One of them was single player content that translates to the actual gameplay that is fun in its own right, not trying to rip off a different genre. The other aspect they talk about is like modifying or cultivating that story as well to show appreciation for the themes of the genre, which ties into single player. The other goal they mentioned first is transplant the arcade into the digital realm. They talk a lot about essentially what a battle hub system would be, but rather than focusing on the current implementation, which they say takes inspiration from Digimon, where all of these lobby systems we have, they're digitized arcades, a relic of the past, literally dating the genre, and also, I would argue, appealing only to the in-group whatsoever, because it's trying to call back, hey, remember when you used to go to the arcades and sit down next to each other and play, which does not exist anymore and is not a relatable experience to anyone born after the year 2000. Like, that didn't exist. That's not a thing people do anymore, right? So it's literally dating the genre, and it doesn't connect to the themes of the story, the characters, or the game itself, right? It's disconnected from all that, and it actually puts a actual barrier between you and the gameplay itself. Rather than being in World Tour where you actually engage in the battles, you're in a fictional arcade where it's clear within the lobby itself that you're booting up next to somebody to play a fake video game, right? Rather than being more seamlessly integrated. So they talk about a lot of ways of trying to transform that experience and integrate more social features, like maybe doing clans where people join these different hubs and you can watch people do their training mode and other things in ways that are actually integrated into the story and themes of the game. rather than it being once again someone sitting at a cab and having this actual like sudden disconnect between the game experience. Like in Elden Ring, you summon people into the game, you're in the world.
Yeah.
You could argue that Souls games do it a little bit too integrated into the world. The multiplayer system is cryptic and it literally built into the world. There's a charm to that you have to use items and summons, and like it's more just seamlessly integrated into the single player experience. But fighting games aren't like that. So they make a lot of arguments in that sense. And I was wondering, what do you think about that? They're talking about like what we said with Battle Hub. Why do we have to use external sources to solve this problem? Why can't it be more built into the game itself?
Well, I think Battle Hub is done right, but I kind of agree with them. Like clans, all that stuff. Everyone just wants to be social. Like fighting games are such a introverted genre. Like you gotta think about it. If you're not streaming, if you go on ranked, you boot up the game, you probably go in training mode, you queue into rank. You're by yourself. You're just isolated. So I do think that's a very frowned upon thing in fighting games. I mean, some people like that kind of stuff, which is fine. But for a lot of people, you want to hang out with your friends, you want to talk to somebody, and all that stuff is great. And also just being able to ask questions. I mean, you might have a guy in your clan who, knows how to crosscut, and then you can just ask him how to crosscut. That's just, games being more enjoyable together. Even when you played when you play like RPGs and stuff, you'd be like, "Yo, how'd you get that weapon?" Well, I can show you. Just follow me. It's so much better when you're playing with other people. And I agree. Fighting games shouldn't be 100% isolated. It makes you feel lonely.
Yeah, I think the Battle Hub is a great feature in Street Fighter 6, but once again, it has that problem of just kind of segmenting the community, because usually the people using Battle Hub are those avoiding ranked, avoiding a more competitive geared mode, and also the ones enjoying the avatar cosmetics and the avatar battles itself, a completely separate game mode. So it ends up isolating people who are more competitively inclined instead of having a common ground for everyone to interact and still engage in the ways that there's no spectrum, essentially. It's just completely different silos is the problem right now. Even though Battle Hub is great, it's the best we've had, it's still siloed. World Tour, Battle Hub, Fighting are like, they're completely disconnected. Because people aren't going to Battle Hub if they're playing ranked. So that also ends up segmenting the character customization, which they also touch on heavily, that you should be able to customize your characters and all that. And I agree with that. Little side tour from the social features. Why don't we still have custom taunts? The emote game blew up with Fortnite. Fighting games did it first, dude. Fighting games did it first. They invented the taunts. Why are taunts not DLC content? I don't understand that.
You're right. I never, that's one of the things I never thought about. But even Street Fighter 4, they had like 1 million taunts in the game. I'm surprised there's actually there's only like 4 taunts in this game, and they could do plenty of taunts. It's like, let Luke. Well, Luke actually already has a flawless dance. Let Ryu do a flawless dance.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. That to me is such a fumble from the genre as a whole. I've always talked about that, how the taunts, that's your way to add the customization and flair without having to tackle the issue of visual readability for like over customizing your in-game character or in-game mode character, and and also it's a way to sell DLC in a way that's not impactful to the competitive integrity of the game. And yeah, you said in Street Fighter 4 there was 1 billion taunts. Everyone had their own favorite flair of taunt, and a lot of them were short and sweet. Like Seth had the neck crack taunt, and I think Punko would use that one a lot. Like that was such a badass taunt. Like you get the stun, you go, and then you go in, or you could even do that in the middle of your gameplay. Then you go fuck them up, right? There's a lot of cool taunts in Street Fighter 4, and that totally fell off.
Maybe people just felt like taunts are toxic. I don't know. I mean, taunts are pretty toxic in fighting games, but maybe it's just like a different era, I want to say. I don't know. I'm just trying to defend not having taunts, but it is. You are right. I do think it's strange that we don't have a million different taunts right now.
No, I think it's just this. In my opinion, that represents also this isolation again of the game modes. The core gameplay of the 1v1 is for the serious players, so they make less goofy fun stuff to do in that mode. And they add that to the battle avatars and the Battle Hub, and people can do funny taunts in the Battle Hub. That's where they put it. You can do all the weird actions with your avatar in the Battle Hub. That should be integrated. It should be one seamless existence. It should be your character that you're doing this with in the 1v1 mode. right? Like there should be some kind of crossover with this. And so I think once again that represents the bigger problem of isolating these different modes. But anyways, I want to talk about their other point about the social features with the lobbies. One problem with Battle Hub right now is that it's just an open lobby and you just join it, and it prevents you from forming a tight knit community like a clan would. And they do a comparison with the a clan functioning more like a modern day Discord server, and the purpose of importing that into the game is stop making people go to a secondary platform in order to have the social features. People use Discord servers to chat with people, and they also sometimes there's a larger Discord server where most people are meeting up, and then there's like fraction ones with some members of that group, and people are in multiple servers that sometimes have multiple people overlapping in them, but you kind of have like different places you hang out with, and you could have clans that actually allow that sort of different group overlap and different vibes in each different clan. And then within those clans, you actually have some social features to engage with people. For example, when I have done Battle Hub, the fun thing I've enjoyed about Battle Hub is when streaming, I go, hey, everybody, we're taking over NA number 13. Boot up the hub, and then we all go in there, and I sit on a cab, I play people like a 1v100 Kumite, and I see who can knock me off the cab, and then every time the game ends, it goes back to the lobby, and there's a million people there flexing their weird avatars. But it has to be this weird, like, this rush to take over. It's kind of like a what do they call it? A flash mob. we flash mob the Battle Hub to make it happen, but I can't have the Brian F clan or whatever clan, the IDOM clan or whatever
dojo,
you want to.
The dojo is actually what you're looking for, the dojo in the top right of the screen. But it would have to be like, hey, the dojo leaders online, and hey, come to Battle Hub number 13 to hang out. Unfortunately, like, we got to use other means like our own Discord servers or streaming or whatever. But I get what you're saying. All that should be in the game. But to be fair, there are some dojo features that do work. Like, you can invite, like, you could see if your friends are playing, where they are, if they're in your same dojo. So that kind of stuff is there, but it's not as impactful or it's not as good as, say, another game. Because if I'm playing, I don't know, what's the game I could... I think if I'm playing like excuse me. If I'm playing like a Halo and I see my friend online, I can go spectate their Halo game. Or if I'm playing Overwatch and I see a friend online, I go watch their game. You should be able to do that for Street Fighter as well, like that, those kind of things. But then, I get weird if I'm watching your rank match.
No, but that's fine if you're in the lobby in that mode. If you're not in an offline lobby, why not? Why not? If I'm doing my dojo and that's forming some kind of camaraderie, and this is what fighting games used to even be before. I think, in a weird way, the online matchmaking and good netcode has destroyed, in some elements, the social aspect of fighting games. And I think this is the big transition, can't speak today either, transition, that needs to happen. We used to have offline only. That formed really tight-knit offline communities based on arcades, your literal dojo. Then you would go from one dojo to another to test your might against the best players in that dojo to see where you guys stood against each other, and that formed this regional and arcade rivalry, which eventually grew once the FGC became more connected via forums and everything to different regions, states. Then it was like East Coast versus West Coast, and these are where a lot of the big stories and impactful moments from FGCs actually are created, is these regional rivalries. And also due to the lack of access, you're forced to train with your dojo because that's the only way you can do it. Then online play comes. It kind of sucks for a while, and so most people still are forced to play offline during the Street Fighter 4, MVC3, 2011, 2015 era. People are still playing online a lot, or offline a lot, and still have that regional camaraderie and dojo-type mentality, which created a lot of fun tribalism on a, tribalism gets bad when taken to the extreme on a global scale, but, for video games, it's a little fun. It's a little, humans like that, okay?
All the stuff you're describing through that whole, like, 2009 to, like, 2020 era, other games were doing that already. They had clan wars. That's what everyone would just do. They would have clan war. So you would just go online and play with your friend. In fighting games, like I said, that's us. That's the fighting game genre being behind. But before, that was just normal.
That's what I was going to get to. That's what I'm saying. We finally got functioning online netcode ubiquitous in 2020 and beyond. And we're fucking late to the game. Now Street Fighter 6 is trying to catch up with social features, and we're behind. This should, And in a weird way, because Street Fighter 6 has such great netcode, it has destroyed this regional camaraderie because everyone just plays online. Now the region is North America as a whole. You play the same people in every tournament, no matter what, from all corners of the country, right? Or the continent, even if Mexico's in there, Canada's in there, right? Like there's no limit. I mean, there's a limit, but you get what I'm saying. And so in a weird way, that's made everything less connected. There's less camaraderie. You're playing against the entire anonymous player base at the same time. Now we need to bring back the social features with limiting that access with the dojo systems, make that more integrated, make it more intimate in that sense. Allow a dojo where people join and develop a sense of pride of like the dojo they're playing in. The West Coast versus East Coast dojo, the whatever, instead of the Discord server, you have your homies in one dojo, and then what is it, the Dark Knights, Kami's running the biggest dojo right now, the most toxic dojo in Street Fighter 6. Imagine if that was a real ass dojo where you can do dojo battles between people would rise up to fight the Dark Knights. People, they got a reputation in ranked already. You don't think there would be like the opposite, I don't know what it would be, the Bright Warriors? I don't know what they would be to fight the Dark Knights. They would want to take them down, and that would build an engaging social experience and even a storyline out of that in the online realm. And so we have a few of those social features in place, but it's not integrated and seamless. And we had to build that up from the ground up now because we just finally got functioning online play 20 years after the rest of the gaming world.
I just feel like fighting games are just a bit far behind. Like I said, other games are kind of already doing this. They're, and kind of like you said, there's so many, we're not even connected. Like, it's not even East Coast versus West Coast. If it was like America versus EU, then it would be more camaraderie or more like of a tribalism thing you have going. But now it's just like, hey man, we're both online. You might be East Coast, I might be West Coast. Who cares? It's just like we're doing our own little thing.
Right. That's why we need the dojo system, man. Yeah, we're behind. But that's the argument of Wheatpix's essay here, is that it's not fundamental to the game itself. It's the product. Those are all solved with better product quality. And so Street Fighter 6 is definitely the biggest example of breaking through, and like these lobby systems we have, it's a step forward. But that needs to be, I agree that the conclusion, like that needs to be the focus at this point. And only until we have a decade of these fully integrated social systems, product quality, and single player content that funnels people into the genre, only then will we maybe have the groundwork laid to support a free-to-play 2XKO.
The only other issue is, too, Street Fighter 6 is the best fighting game product right now, but SF6 also kind of has his issue. The problem is all the other games basically got to rise up, or we're kind of just going to live in a Street Fighter 6 only world anyway, which is, possibility. But that's also kind of just like the other scary thing to kind of think about as well. So other games have to be better, essentially, or, rise up next to Street Fighter 6. And that makes,
just like Street Fighter 5, they got to rise up. Street Fighter 5 is a case study and exactly what happens when you neglect the product quality. Capcom learned that you can't release a dog turd of a product quality, and they went ham for Street Fighter 6.
So I would also even argue 5 was bad for Street Fighter fans, but 5 was good for fighting game fans because they got everyone else to try a whole bunch of other fighting games or getting into other games, or like they were more open to try other things. But now since 6 is like, the game right now, everyone talks about 6. 6 is good for Street Fighter fans, but I think it would be bad for fighting game fans because like other people are kind of like iffy. Oh, I might as well just play 6, right?
Right.
So all those problems stem as well.
Yeah, but that's still, I agree with that overall, but that's still fighting over the same crumbs. You know what I'm saying? You're divvying up the same crumbs of an audience. Because even if you shifted over a portion of the 100,000 of people playing a Street Fighter title to other different games, how do you grow the whole pie? That developers have been focusing on competing with each other for crumbs instead of growing the whole pie. Street Fighter 6 has taken the first big move to grow the pie, and that's why it's going to cannibalize the rest of the genre until another developer steps up and actually competes with them on the product quality front. That's where we need the competition.
Giuna, I think Giuna made a tweet about this as well, but I think if every fighting game player just played one game, I think we would have more players in Deadlock. The problem is we have so many other options.
I don't even know if that's true, dude. I don't even know
I do
if that's actually true.
I do think it's true. I think if we took the Street Fighter player, the Tekken player, the Smash players, the 2SKO players, all those people, and they all had to play one fighting game, I think we would actually be bigger than a lot of the other games as well.
Maybe if the console numbers are enough. I mean, that's the one thing I do want to acknowledge. People always bring up, well, what about console? What about console? Yes, console exists. We understand we don't have the exact numbers for console. Yeah, we're considering that. So maybe with console, yes. But even then, I would not be surprised. I don't know for sure, but I would not be surprised if a Deadlock or whatever. I mean, we don't have more than Dota. We don't have more than League of Legends.
No game's getting up there. Like, if your comparison's trying to get league numbers, then every game's destined to fail.
Sure. I agree with that. I'm just trying to say that we don't have to set our sights so low, is also what I'm saying. And I do think currently the genre is not popular in terms of concurrent players. It doesn't keep people engaged. And the other side of this is also, there's so much to get into this. We're going too long on this. I just want to even maybe bring up these points before people bring it up in the comments. They probably already are. What about NRS? What about Mortal Kombat? One of the best-selling fighting game franchises of all time. Great single-player content, but has zero traction in the competitive sphere whatsoever, and people just consume and move on and wait for the next one.
I think the FGC is less than 2% of people who actually play fighting games. I actually think the FGC is so small that people don't even realize it. But obviously, people in the FGC are very, hesitant about Mortal Kombat, which is very, like, they'll be like, Mortal Kombat's going to come out, it's going to die in like a couple of months. So, but, to people outside, if I go outside and ask somebody who's Scorpion, they're going to know who Scorpion is. If I go outside and ask them what a Blaze Blue or Guilty Gear is, they're not gonna know what I'm talking about. They're gonna think I'm a weirdo. So I think it's for that kind of argument. I do think people are just being kind of weird. But I do think fighting games are bigger than people say they are. But it's just the FGC being weird about it, and the FGC is small, and people just associate fighting games with the FGC.
True, but I guess in the modern multiplayer landscape, people look to ongoing player counts and not for the relevance of sales and short-term engagement. I guess that's the thing people are referring to. And fighting games like NRS and Mortal Kombat, I think they fall into that first category we talked about of the single-player content not transitioning and getting people into the multiplayer. It doesn't have that funnel. But people really enjoy the novelty of the single player content, the story mode, the cinematics. I mean, it does great. It's a great job, and that's why it sells like crazy and has the majority of the cultural relevance to the American audience. At least it outsells every fighting game here.
I think so many people just want to buy a fighting game. This is gonna sound crazy. I think 70 to 80% of people who play fighting game, this is not just FGC. They'll buy the game. They'll see the supers, they'll see the fatalities, they'll see the x-rays, they'll see whatever. Play the game for like 15 to 20 hours, maybe see all that, maybe a couple arcade mode runs, a story mode. That's it. They're never playing the game again. That's it. They got their fighting game.
Yep, that's the current paradigm, and that's why if any developer could ever solve that issue of making that experience be enough to get people to actually engage with the real game underneath, the real engine, understand it, and have fun during that process, they will be the ones to take over the genre, along with having the social features and the capacity to support them once they actually are encouraged to take that step. They will take it over. Street Fighter 6 is definitely by far the closest we've got to that so far, and it's doing it. It could do more for sure, but it's like as much as people might nitpick about gameplay here and there, whatever, like I agree at the end of the day that shit does not matter nowhere near as much as product quality, single player, getting the funnel right. That is by far the most important, by far.
Gameplay doesn't matter. That's what I learned. That's what I learned from all this. I was like, gameplay really doesn't, it's not the say all be all. Like no. I always thought, I glazed Marvel 3, best fighting game, gameplay wise, but it's not only about the gameplay.
No, it's not only. It definitely matters. It definitely matters to keep people once they get through. Our top of funnel is garbage is the problem. It's stinky, smelly, and it doesn't get people in. You still need the gameplay to keep people going and going. So that is still important, but it's not the first thing that matters.
As long as the gameplay isn't like, steaming hot dog shit, I feel like you'll be all right. If it's passable, like if it's edible, people will be there. But if it's edible and everything else is great, people will love it.
For sure. It's not the first priority for getting the most amount of engagement in sales. It is a priority at some point for sure for longevity and legacy. No, it doesn't matter. I don't want to say it doesn't matter, but I think the problem is the developers have been focusing so much on trying to ease the entry to the gameplay and not the product. I 100% agree with that, with Wheatbix's approach there. There's some stuff they talk about that I don't really. They go like way into martial arts stuff, and I'm maybe I don't really care.
Yeah, I'm not exactly what you're talking about.
I don't care about martial arts to that degree. That's there's some elements to this essay I don't care for, but I think we're gonna wrap it up there. There's so many interesting takeaways from this essay and this conversation. I know people are tired of talking about fighting games and their design. Do fighting games need to be saved? No, they can stay niche forever. They can try to find a sustainable business model at a small scale. But do they have potential to blow up? I think so. If the developers finally get their shit together. Street Fighter 6 has the best chance. It's done the most. It has the most sauce and the most quality we've seen in a long time. If they take that exponential leap they did from 5 to 6, from 6 to 7, that would be crazy. Like that would be the only thing left for them to do is to bridge the gap between single player and finish the social features. Then boom, that's the recipe. And if that doesn't work to blow up Street Fighter to reach those numbers, then it's over. Adam was right.
Street Fighter 7 is our last hope. If that doesn't work, then it's over.
The fighting games will be niche forever, which won't be the end of the world. I mean, it's okay. I think that's the other takeaway that people get kind of annoyed with is this discussion, like, why does it matter? Which is a whole topic on its own. I care about it because I love the competitive side of things, and I want to see that be fed with new people interested in the genre for a very long time. Something that I love and I enjoy, so I want that funnel to keep getting people into fighting games, keep enjoying it, so I can see the best go at it and enjoy the narratives and storylines from that. I love that shit, so that's why I care.
For me, at least, I feel like it's always going to be there's something I enjoy, and I enjoy it so much, and that thing is fighting games. And if I love fighting games so much, why can't you enjoy it as well? I think that's for a lot of people the reason why you want fighting games to grow.
Yeah. There's a bit of frustration in not being able to communicate that, right? It's like, it's very, I think that's why this piece resonates with everybody, because the writing is pretty good. I don't agree with every conclusion or, theory in here, but I think it helps vent a lot of frustration that people couldn't put into words about the potential of something you love so much and be able to communicate that to other people. So shout out to Wheatbix. Let us know what you think in the comments. I think this is going to be definitely a little bit of the content creator buzz for a little while, so people might get annoyed about hearing about it, but we'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And that's going to be it for Extra Trashy. That's it. We're out. Have a good one, guys.
Peace. Thanks
for watching. Peace. Hey, thanks for tuning in to Extra Trashy. At this point in the show, we like to thank our members over at patreon.com/Brian_F. If you're watching on the video feed on Spotify or on YouTube, you're going to be seeing some names scrolling by right now of our supporters. These people help make this show possible. It simply would not be possible without their support. On the Patreon page itself, you can find early previews to mainline Trash Talk episodes, behind-the-scenes updates, and actually cut content that don't make it into these episodes, as well as some behind-the-scenes previews into what's going on in the main channel as well. We'd also like to give a very special thanks to our landfill members, Bryce Scatterfield, Chris FK, Chris K. Hibiki, Chuckle Chuck, SPO, Flawless Victory, Grant Posington, Hasserus, Jonathan Ayala, Kelly Lyles, 6 Mil, and Smoking Seabass. Thanks for your continued support for Extra Trashy, and we'll catch you guys in the next episode. Peace.